Look, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but your costs are going up. The last year has wreaked havoc on supply chains across the world, from demand shifts to cost changes to transportation disruptions. All these things have culminated into a perfect storm, which means that you're going to be paying more for goods that you sell on Amazon and online. In this video, I break down all the reasons that led to this happening and, equally important, things that you can do to get in front of it. Let's go. Hey guys, if this is your first time here, welcome to Heist. If you've been here before, great to see you again. We break down deep dive, high level, operate your business content surrounding Amazon FBA and selling things online. So if you've been under a rock, the last year, things are a little bit weird. Things are different. People are shopping differently. The economics of the world have shifted, and the results have slowly started to emerge over the last 6 to 8 months. And what it means is the cost of goods and the transportation of goods, if you sell physical goods online, is going up. You've probably been hearing rumblings from your suppliers. You've probably seen your invoices to ship goods go up. Everything that's going on right now is leading to bad news in terms of higher costs for sellers. I'm going to break down 7 of the big reasons. First, COVID and inflation in general, as we've pumped money into the economy to counteract it, has totally disrupted and changed supply chains. I think a lot of people didn't really know what was going to happen when the lockdowns occurred. Where were demands and consumer behaviors going to shift? Did people have money? Would there be a recession? And I think a lot of these unknowns led to making decisions and forecasting analysis that just didn't turn out to be true. And what really ended up happening is people started to spend a crap load of money, especially in areas and in channels that they hadn't had previously. This has increased demand, changed supply economics, and changed cost economics. The second and related is that consumer spending has dramatically changed. People are at home buying stuff for themselves. They're not buying discretionary income on travel, and they're not eating out like they used to. So they're spending a lot of money on goods and personal goods. And so while we sat on our hands not sure what people were going to buy, our supply chains weren't ready for the surge of demand. And to catch up to that demand has changed lead times, it's changed costs, it's changed production capabilities, which has led to higher costs. As a result of this supply-demand economics, 2 things have happened. First, raw materials are going up. So all of the input materials, whether it's aluminum or metals, whether it's plastics and resins, the things that go into making products, those have all gone up as supplies have tightened up. The end parts that get created that are built into goods as a result have also gone up. Parts are harder to come by. They're more expensive. And the raw materials that go into making them have gone up. The fifth is lead times have gone up. If you want goods and you want them on the previous lead time, you're going to have to pay a lot more and a premium to get them. There's lots of parts, especially in the electronic space, that are now 30 weeks or more to get. The Ford F-150, as an example, is wildly delayed because of a $4 part and electronics piece that goes into a board. With these kind of lead times, it has dramatically shifted not only the cost, but the availability of goods to supply that demand. And the last 2 relate to hard costs. If you do business in China, as an example, the RMB to US dollar exchange rate has changed to the negative about 8%. So you pay your supplier in US dollars, they convert that via RMB to their yuan currency. And the result is that US dollar that you give them is worth 8% less. So they then want to increase their prices to counteract that diluted value of the US dollar that you're giving them. About a year ago, the RMB to US dollar exchange rate was about 7.1 and now it's 6.5. So if you hear your suppliers saying that they need to increase price because of the exchange rate, that's why. And then finally, ocean freight is absolutely ridiculous. We've seen kind of the headlines recently of the Suez Canal getting blocked. There was Maersk ships that dumped thousands of containers into the water. We've had global container shortages. Shipping lines have been disrupted. There hasn't been consumer air flight to have some cargo open up on air flight. We've had masks and other emergency supplies take a lot of the freight lines. It's just been a mess. The result is that it's been more of a doubling in container rates over the last year. About 12 months ago, I was paying about $4,000 for a full 40-foot container. Back in January, not too long ago, it was like the low 7,000s. My recent quotes are $9,000 and above to get a 40-foot container. So the average shipping cost per unit has more than doubled. Not even including the additional freight to store it at warehouses because of Amazon limitations, to send in SBD versus LTL because of disruptions in LTL in the US, and then increases in truck freight rates for LTL as well. So transportation costs are going up. So that's all a bad news backdrop into the elements that help you understand why the cost of your products from vendors are going up, as well as all the ancillary costs, logistical costs to ship, store, and move those goods to their end destination where you can sell them to customers. So let's do something about it. Let's talk about some things that you can do to get in front of this. The first, and I think one of the most important, and something that I preach a lot on this channel, is focus on brand building and selling at a premium. When you are just a normal widget that doesn't have a lot of differentiation, that doesn't have a unique selling proposition, that doesn't have good photography, good visuals, good branding, good logos, things like that, you end up playing a commodity price game. And anytime you have increases in your cost, you just simply can't absorb it because you're competing on price. So when you focus on brand, you have a lot more wiggle room to either increase your price or sell at higher margins, such that even a 10, 15, 20% cost increase doesn't completely derail your strategy. The second thing I would say is to sell products greater than $40. It's very popular in the Amazon space to focus on this $15 to $25 price point. The reason being, you can find products that are $1 to $3. It's cheap to place a PO. It's a little bit smaller typically. It's easier to play in that game. But the problem is that you have very little room in terms of advertising costs or absorbing costs like we've seen here. When you sell above $40, you generally speaking have a higher gross profit dollar amount that you can use to absorb and or flex above to handle these cost increases. The third is you need to become heavily involved in your supply chain. When your vendor comes to you and says, hey, I'm adding a 20% cost increase because my costs are going up, you need to understand what led to that, to both validate, understand, and hopefully help problem solve with your vendor. So get a bill of materials. What are the parts that go into creating your product? If it's a lot of aluminum, you need to keep a tight pulse on the price of aluminum and see if that correlates to the costs that you're seeing from vendors. If there's a particular part where the long lead time has gone up and you need to buy on the spot market to get your old lead times, can you find that part yourself or help your vendor identify alternatives that don't cost as much or that don't have the same lead time? You need to deeply understand the size of your product. Can you save some money on size? Can you reevaluate your master carton pack sizes? Can you find new shipping partners that give you more efficiencies? Can you renegotiate with UPS to get a better rate card when it gets to the US? Can you talk to your warehouse? Let them know that your costs are going up 20% and you need them to help you absorb some of those challenges with storage costs and intake costs. It's time to get creative. It's time to get deeply involved in all of the mechanics and nuances of your supply chain so that you can sharpen the pencil, partner up with the various elements of your supply chain, and see what you can do in terms of efficiencies and cost reductions. When the going gets tough, you got to dig in and be smart to absorb and curtail some of those expenses that you're starting to see. The fourth, and something that I like to do with every new vendor, is setting up manufacturing agreements. There's a lot of legalese that I have in my manufacturing agreements, but there's a core element, and probably the most critical element, which is that I institute a requirement that they must notify me 6 months in advance of a cost increase. This enables me to plan my pricing adjustments in advance. If I'm selling to retailers where I've got to hold to a specific map and don't have the flexibility to increase my price, it gives me that timeline and that flexibility to get in front of it and adjust prices. It also forces your vendor to be very thoughtful that they can't just knee-jerk pass costs onto you. It's got to be planned, it's got to be strategic, and it's got to be an aligned effort that occurs over time. So manufacturing agreements can be key. The final thing, assuming that your cash flow allows it or you can find some cheap debt, is to load up on bigger orders and order more at a time so that you're ordering full container loads and you have more leverage and negotiating capability with your vendors. You also may want to look at some annualized agreements and go to your vendor and be like, look, what if I commit to 12,000 units over the next 12 months? I normally order 800-ish every month, and I place that order every couple months. What if I place big bulk 4 to 6 month orders and I commit to you to ordering 12,000 a year? Can we reduce the price if I do that? So whether it's focusing on brand that gives you the ability to sell at a premium, selling products that are a little bit higher ticket that are over $40, really deeply getting involved in the BOM of your products and understanding all the elements of your supply chain, locking in manufacturing agreements that structure in how price changes can happen, or looking at bulk optimization and leverage activities to reduce your costs. There are some things that you can do in this fluctuating, scary cost increase environment to either reduce those costs or eliminate them entirely. Guys, as always, I'm rooting for you. Dig your heels in, get creative. Remember, it's not the end of the world. We've solved bigger problems than a 10 to 20% cost increase. You'll survive this, you'll solve it. It's just going to make you better. It's going to make you a better operator. It's going to make you a better business owner, and it's going to make you a better Amazon seller. So sharpen your pencils. I hope this one was valuable. If you've got any additional thoughts, ideas, or context you want to share with the Heist community, do it down below. And if this is your first time here, just hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and dangle that little bell so you'll be notified on my next weekly Heist video. Until the next one, cheers.